What if the one person you feared most was the only one who could truly see you? Imagine this. You're alone in a hidden cabin deep in the woods, hand pressed to your swelling belly, whispering to the tiny life inside. We can't let him find us. He'll take you. He'll ruin everything. Every rustle of leaves makes your heart stop. Every shift in the wind carries the ghost of his scent. Cedar, storm, power. You've spent months masking your pregnancy with bitter herbs, avoiding packlands, surviving on scraps of hope and sheer will. Because the man whose child you carry isn't just any wolf. He's the Alpha King. The same Alpha King who once held you like you were the center of his universe under a harvest moon, then vanished at dawn, leaving only an unfinished mark on your neck and a promise he never kept. You ran to protect your pup, to protect yourself from rejection, from being reduced to a political footnote, from watching him claim your child while you faded into nothing. But secrets like this, they don't stay hidden forever. Chapter 1. The Scent That Betrayed Me. The moon hung low and heavy over the Blackwood forest, silver light slicing through the pines like a lover's hesitant touch. Alara pressed her back against the rough bark of an ancient oak, one hand cradling the gentle swell beneath her cloak. 6 months. 6 months of careful breaths, of masking herbs rubbed into her skin until it stung, of avoiding every pack gathering where the wind might carry her secret straight to him. King Thorn Blackthorn. The alpha whose name alone made wolves bare their throats in submission. The man who had once pinned her against silk sheets in his chambers, growling her name like a prayer as he claimed every inch of her body with a hunger that still made her thighs clench at the memory. That night, the heat moon, the rut. He had marked her neck with fangs that barely broke skin, whispering promises he never meant to keep. Mine, he'd rasped against her pulse. Forever had lasted until dawn. By morning he was gone, called to council, leaving only the ache between her legs and the faint bruise of his bite that faded too quickly for a true mate mark. When the nausea started weeks later, when the tests confirmed what her wolf already knew, she hadn't waited for rejection. She fled. Now she lived in a hidden cabin on the edge of neutral territory, surviving on freelance herbalist work for rogue wolves and the occasional human hiker who wandered too far. No pack, no status. Just her, the pup growing inside her, and the constant, exhausting vigilance. Tonight the air felt wrong, thicker, charged. She had scented him earlier, faint, like smoke on distant wind, but convinced herself it was paranoia. She stepped away from the tree, intending to slip inside and bolt the door. A low growl rolled through the darkness. Alara froze. He emerged from the shadows like he owned them. Tall, broad-shouldered, black hair tousled by the wind, golden eyes glowing with the predator's gleam. His leather coat hung open over a dark shirt stretched tight across his chest, sleeves rolled to reveal forearms corded with muscle and old scars. The same scars her nails had left the night he took her apart and put her back together. Thorn stopped 10 paces away, nostrils flared, once, twice. Then his gaze dropped to her abdomen. The world narrowed to the sound of her own heartbeat, and his sudden, ragged inhale. You... His voice was gravel and thunder. You're carrying my pup. Alara's hand instinctively curved protectively over the bump. Stay back. He didn't. One step. Another. The air between them crackled with the old heat, the mate bond she had tried so hard to sever by distance alone. It thrummed now, alive and furious, pulling at her core like invisible threads. How long? He demanded, eyes never leaving her belly. Long enough to know you didn't want this. Her voice cracked despite her effort to keep it steady. You walked away that morning. You never came back. I wasn't going to beg. Thorn's jaw clenched so hard she heard the grind of teeth. I was called to the border wars. No. She shook her head, tears burning. You were called to your throne, to your duties, to everything that wasn't me. I heard the whispers, Thorn. The council wanted an alliance marriage, a pure-blood Luna, not an Omega herbalist who warmed your bed for one heat. His eyes darkened to molten gold. You think I would have let them take you from me? You already did. Silence stretched, taut, and painful. Then he moved, fast, but not violent. In 3 strides he closed the distance, towering over her, close enough that she could feel the furnace heat radiating from his body, smell the cedar and storm scent that still haunted her dreams. Elara backed up until her shoulders hit the cabin wall. No escape. Thorn braced one forearm above her head, caging her without touching. His other hand hovered near her cheek, trembling with restraint. "I searched for you," he said, voice low and raw. "Every day, every night. I tore through territories, interrogated rogues, nearly started real wars looking for my mate. And you were here, hiding my child." The word "my" vibrated through her, possessive, reverent, broken. She swallowed hard. "I was protecting him. From a father who might see him as a complication. From a king who might take him to secure his line and leave me behind." Thorn's breath hitched. Slowly, agonizingly, he lowered his hand to the curve of her belly. The moment his palm settled there, warm through the thin fabric of her dress, the pup kicked. Hard. Right against his hand. A sound tore from his throat. Half growl, half sob. His forehead dropped to hers, eyes squeezing shut. "Feel that?" he whispered. "That's us. That's what I almost lost forever." Tears slipped down Elara's cheeks. She hated how much she wanted to lean into him, hated how her body still remembered every stroke of his tongue, every thrust that had branded her soul. "You hurt me," she breathed. "You left me alone with this." "I know," his voice cracked. "And I'll spend the rest of my life begging forgiveness if you'll let me." He shifted closer, their bodies aligning until she felt every hard plane of him pressed lightly against her softer curves. The scent of arousal, his, hers, rose sharp and undeniable. His lips brushed her temple, feather soft. "Let me in, Elara. Let me prove I can be the mate you deserve, the father our pup needs." Her hands fisted in his shirt. Push him away, pull him closer. She couldn't decide. Thorn tilted her chin up with gentle fingers, their eyes locked. The bond sang between them, hot and insistent. Then he kissed her. Not claiming. Not devouring. Slow. Devastating. A brush of lips that deepened into something aching and reverent, tasting of salt and regret, and the promise of more. His hand stayed on her belly, protective, while the other cupped her face like she was glass. She melted against him despite herself, a soft whimper escaping as his tongue traced hers. Slow, teasing, reminding her body exactly how well he knew it. When he pulled back, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against hers again. "I'm not leaving without you," he murmured. "Not tonight. Not ever." He reached past her, pushed the cabin door open, then turned the key in the lock behind them with a decisive click. The sound echoed in the quiet night. Locked. Together, and for the first time in months, Elara didn't feel afraid. She felt seen. Chapter 2. The Weight of Forgiveness. The lock clicked into place like a heartbeat finally finding its rhythm. Inside the small cabin, the single lantern cast warm, flickering gold across the wooden walls. Elara stood frozen just inside the threshold, still tasting the ghost of Thorn's kiss on her lips. Slow, reverent, devastating in its tenderness. Her hands trembled at her sides. The pup gave another strong kick, as if reminding her, "He's here." He stayed. Thorn didn't move right away. He leaned back against the locked door, arms crossed over his broad chest, golden eyes fixed on her with an intensity that made her skin flush, despite the cool night air seeping through the cracks. The silence stretched, thick with everything they hadn't said in months. Then he spoke, voice low and rough. "I won't touch you again unless you ask me to." Elara's breath caught. She searched his face. Those sharp cheekbones, the faint scar along his jaw from some long-ago border skirmish. The way his dark hair fell forward now, softening the kingly arrogance she used to both hate and crave. "Why say that?" she whispered. "Because I've taken enough from you without permission." He pushed off the door slowly, palms open at his sides in clear surrender. "I left you that morning. I let duty pull me away when I should have chained myself to your side. I failed you, Alara, and I failed him." His gaze dropped to her belly again, raw longing flashing across his features. "I won't fail you twice." Tears welled so fast she couldn't blink them away. "You think words fix this?" "No." He took one careful step closer. "Words are just the beginning. Let me show you the rest." He sank to his knees in front of her, slowly, deliberately, the powerful Alpha King folding himself on the worn rug like a supplicant. The sight stole her breath. Thorn Blackthorn did not kneel, not for anyone. Yet here he was, eye level with her rounded stomach, hands resting lightly on his thighs as though afraid even to reach. "May I?" he asked, voice barely above a whisper. Alara's throat worked. She nodded once, small, uncertain. His palms came up slowly, reverent, and settled on either side of her belly through the thin cotton of her dress. The warmth of him seeped through instantly, chasing away the chill she hadn't realized she carried. The pup responded immediately, rolling and pressing against his father's touch like it recognized the voice that had once rumbled through her body in the dark. Thorn exhaled shakily. "Gods, he knows me." "He's always known you," she said, voice cracking. "Even when I tried to convince myself he didn't." Thorn bowed his head until his forehead rested gently against the swell. His shoulders rose and fell in silent, shuddering breath. For long minutes he simply stayed there, breathing her in, her scent, the pup's scent, the mingled fragrance of cedar smoke from the hearth, and the wildflowers she'd gathered that morning. When he finally spoke again, his words were muffled against her dress. "I dreamed of this. Every night I searched for you. I dreamed of finding you like this, round with my child, glowing, alive. And every time I woke up alone, it felt like dying all over again." Alara's fingers twitched. Before she could stop herself, they slid into his hair, thick, slightly damp from the night mist. She held him there, not pulling him closer, not pushing him away. Just holding. "I was so scared," she admitted, voice small. "Scared you'd see the pup as a political inconvenience. Scared you'd take him and leave me with nothing but memories of how you used to look at me like I was the only thing that mattered." Thorn lifted his head. Tears glistened on his lashes, something she'd never seen before, not even in the heat of battle or passion. "You were. You are." He rose slowly to his feet, careful not to crowd her, though every inch of space between them felt electric. "Let me prove it." He reached for the ties at the neck of her dress, slow enough she could stop him with a word. She didn't. The fabric parted inch by inch. Cool air kissed her skin, raising goosebumps. Thorn's gaze followed the path his fingers traced, over the fuller curve of her breasts, the dark, sensitive peaks already tight from pregnancy and memory, down to the roundness that carried their future. He sucked in a breath. "You're more beautiful than I remembered." "Don't lie," she said, half laugh, half sob. "I've never lied to you about this." His voice dropped to velvet gravel. "Never." He sank to his knees again, this time pressing soft, open-mouthed kisses along the underside of her belly. Worshipful, unhurried. Each press of lips sent sparks racing through her nerves. When his tongue flicked lightly over a stretch mark, silver threads she'd once hated, he growled low in his throat, possessive and adoring. "These are mine too," he murmured against her skin. "Proof you carried my pup alone. Proof of your strength." Another kiss, lower. "Proof I was a fool to ever let you go." Alara's knees weakened. She gripped his shoulders for balance. Heat pooled low in her belly. Not just arousal, but something deeper. Something that ached with months of loneliness finally cracking open. Thorn's hand slid up the backs of her thighs, steadying her, thumbs stroking gentle circles. He kissed higher, along the curve where hip met stomach, then the delicate line beneath her breast. When his mouth closed softly over one tight peak, tongue circling slow and deliberate, she gasped, sharp, needy. He froze instantly. "Too much?" "No," she breathed. "Don't stop." Relief and hunger flashed in his eyes. He lavished attention on her. Slow licks, gentle suction, the barest scrape of teeth that made her arch into him. His hands roamed reverently, cupping, caressing, learning every new inch of her changed body, as though committing it to memory all over again. When he finally pulled back, both of them were breathing hard. His pupils were blown wide, fangs slightly elongated with the edge of his wolf. But he didn't push, didn't demand more. Instead, he rose, gathered her gently into his arms, bridal style, careful of her belly, and carried her to the narrow bed in the corner. He laid her down like she was made of moonlight, then stretched out beside her, fully clothed, one arm draped protectively across her waist. "Sleep," he murmured against her temple. "I'm not going anywhere." Alara turned her face into his neck, inhaling the familiar storm and cedar scent. Her hand found his, lacing their fingers over her belly. The pup settled, calm for the first time in weeks. Just as her eyes drifted closed, a sharp knock shattered the quiet. Thorn tensed instantly. Outside, a voice, young, urgent, called through the wood. "My king, urgent missive from the council. The border lords demand your presence at first light. They say, if you do not return, they will move to declare the throne vacant." Alara's heart plummeted. Thorn's grip on her tightened. The night that had finally begun to feel safe suddenly felt fragile again. Chapter 3, The Journey Home. Dawn broke cold and gray over the forest clearing. The messenger, a young beta with wide, nervous eyes, stood rigid at the edge of the porch, the sealed scroll still trembling in his outstretched hand. Thorn hadn't released Alara's fingers since the knock came. His grip was firm, grounding, as if letting go might unravel the fragile piece they had stitched together in the night. Alara watched the boy's face pale further under Thorn's stare. She felt the shift in the air, the weight of a crown pressing down again, invisible but crushing. "Speak plainly," Thorn said, voice low but carrying the edge of command. The messenger swallowed. "The High Council. They convene at noon tomorrow. Lord Vera has called for a vote. If you are not present to affirm your rule, they will declare the throne contested. They say absence is abandonment. They say—" He glanced at Alara's rounded belly, then quickly away. "The line is uncertain." Thorn's jaw tightened. Alara felt the tremor run through his hand into hers. For a heartbeat, she thought he might roar, might send the boy running with teeth bared. Instead, he exhaled slowly, deliberately. "Tell them the king returns today," he said, "with his mate, and their future queen carries the heir. There will be no contest." The messenger bowed so low his forehead nearly touched the dirt, then bolted back into the trees without another word. Silence fell again, heavier now. Alara turned to Thorn. "You're really going back." "We're going back," he corrected gently. He lifted her hand to his lips, pressing a lingering kiss to her knuckles. "I won't leave you here alone again. Not for a single sunrise." She searched his eyes, saw the storm there, regret, determination, a fierce protectiveness that made her chest ache. "I'm scared," she admitted, voice small. "The palace, the nobles, they'll look at me like I'm an intruder, like I stole you." Thorn cupped her face with both hands, thumbs stroking her cheekbones. "They will look at you the way I do, with awe, because you are carrying the future of our pack in your body, because you survived my mistakes and still let me stand here holding you. If anyone dares speak against you, they will answer to me, not with claws, with truth. With the law I will rewrite if I must." Tears pricked her eyes. She leaned into his touch. "Promise me. Promise I won't disappear again." "I swear it on the moon that first saw us together," he whispered. "You will stand at my side, not as ornament, as equal, as my heart." They left within the hour. A royal carriage waited at the forest road's end. Black lacquered wood, silver wolf crest gleaming, pulled by 4 massive midnight horses. Thorn helped her inside with infinite care, one hand always at her elbow, the other cradling her lower back. The interior was lined in deep burgundy velvet, cushioned soft enough to cradle her aching body. He settled beside her, arm around her shoulders, pulling her close until her head rested against his chest. The wheels began to roll. For the first few miles, neither spoke. Only the creak of wood, the rhythmic thud of hooves, the steady beat of his heart under her ear. Then Alara whispered, "Tell me something true." Thorn's fingers traced slow patterns on her arm. "Every night I searched for you. I sat in the throne room alone after the council left. I stared at the empty seat beside mine and imagined you there, laughing at my terrible jokes, challenging my decisions, making the room feel alive again. I hated that chair, because it reminded me what I'd thrown away." She tilted her head to look up at him. "I used to dream of you coming for me, even when I told myself it was foolish. I'd wake up crying, hand on my belly, whispering to the pup that maybe one day his father would know how brave he was being just by existing." Thorn's breath caught. He turned slightly, pressing his lips to her forehead. Long, lingering, full of unspoken apologies. "He's brave because of you," he murmured against her skin. "And I'm the luckiest fool alive that you're giving me a second chance." As night fell, the carriage lanterns were lit. Golden light danced across their faces. Thorn shifted so she could lie more comfortably against him, her back to his chest, his arms wrapped protectively around her middle. His hand rested over hers on her belly. The pup rolled lazily, as if content in the cocoon they'd made. Alara felt the warmth of him seep into her bones, chasing away the chill of months alone. She turned her face into his neck, inhaling cedar and storm and home. "I still love you," she breathed, the confession slipping out like a secret too heavy to keep any longer. "Even when it hurt, even when I tried not to." Thorn's arms tightened. A low, ragged sound escaped him. "And I love you," he said, voice thick. "More than the throne, more than the pack, more than anything I've ever known." He tilted her chin up gently. Their eyes met, gold on deep brown, raw and open. Slowly he leaned down, brushing his lips against hers. Soft at first, tasting of salt and relief. Then deeper, slow, unhurried, pouring every missed moment into the kiss. His hand slid up to cradle her jaw, thumb stroking her cheek. She sighed into his mouth, fingers threading into his hair, pulling him closer. The kiss turned heated with emotion, desperate in its tenderness, aching with all the time lost. His other hand stayed on her belly, protective, reverent, as if anchoring them both to the miracle between them. When they parted, foreheads pressed together, breaths mingling, Alara felt tears slip free. "I'm still scared," she whispered. "I know," he answered, "but we face it together now." The carriage slowed. The driver's voice called softly, "The palace gates, my king." Thorn tensed. Alara felt it ripple through him. Outside the window, torchlight flickered. Not just palace guards. A delegation waited. Banners of crimson and gold, the sigil of the rival Ironclaw pack. Their alpha, Lord Kael, stood at the forefront, arms crossed, eyes sharp. Thorn's jaw set. He squeezed Alara's hand once, fierce and steady. "They want something," he said quietly. "An old alliance debt. Or perhaps they sense weakness." Alara's heart pounded. "What do we do?" He met her eyes, fierce love burning there. "We walk in as one. Let them see what they're truly facing." He opened the carriage door. The night air rushed in, cold, expectant. Chapter 4. Shadows of the Court. The palace gates loomed like the jaws of a sleeping beast, iron wrought with silver wolves that caught the torchlight and threw it back in sharp, accusing glints. Lord Kael of the Ironclaw pack stood dead center, flanked by his delegation, 6 tall betas in crimson cloaks, faces carved from stone. His eyes, pale as winter frost, fixed on Thorn the moment the carriage door opened. Thorn stepped down first, boots hitting the cobblestones with deliberate weight. He didn't release Alara's hand. Instead, he turned, offering his arm so she could descend with dignity. She took it, chin high despite the sudden rush of cold air and colder stares. The pup kicked once, sharp, almost defiant, as if sensing the shift in the air. Lord Kael's gaze slid to her belly. A flicker crossed his features. calculation, then something darker. "King Thorn," he said, voice smooth as oiled steel. "The council speaks of your prolonged absence, and now we see why. An Omega, with child." Thorn's fingers tightened around Alara's. "My mate," he corrected, the word ringing clear and unyielding. "Alara Voss, soon to be Luna of Silverfang, mother of the air. Speak of her with respect, Kale, or we end this conversation before it begins." A murmur rippled through the Ironclaw betas. Kale's smile was thin. "Respect is earned. Alliances are remembered. Your father pledged Ironclaw a seat at the high table when our pack stood together against the Eastern Raiders. That debt is long unpaid. We come to collect, before the throne grows unstable." Alara felt Thorn's pulse jump against her palm. She squeezed his hand once, silent, steady. "We face it together." Thorn's voice dropped, calm but edged with winter. "The debt was honored in blood and land 20 winters ago. If you seek more, name it plainly. But know this, my mate and child are not bargaining pieces. Push this path, and you will find the Silverfang throne has teeth." Kale studied them both for a long moment. Then he inclined his head, just enough to be polite, not enough to submit. "We will speak in council tomorrow. Safe journey inside your walls. For now." The delegation parted. Thorn led Alara forward without another word. Palace guards snapped to attention, gates groaning open. The moment they crossed the threshold, the heavy iron clanged shut behind them. Inside the grand courtyard, moonlight pooled on marble like spilled milk. Servants bowed low, eyes wide with shock and curiosity. Alara felt every gaze like a pinprick. She was no longer the invisible Omega who once carried trays through these halls. She was the woman who had vanished with the king's child inside her. The whispers had already begun. Thorn didn't pause. He guided her straight through the echoing corridors, past tapestries of ancient battles and ancestors, up the wide staircase to the royal wing. Only when the heavy oak doors of the king's private chambers closed behind them did he finally exhale. He turned to her, eyes searching her face. "You're shaking." "I'm not," she lied, then laughed, a small broken sound. "I am. They looked at me like I was a scandal waiting to happen." Thorn drew her close, arms wrapping around her from behind so she could lean against his chest. His chin rested gently atop her head. "They looked at power they don't understand yet. You walked through those gates with your head high and my hand in yours. That alone terrifies them more than any crown." She closed her eyes, letting his warmth seep in. The pup settled, as though soothed by the steady drum of his heartbeat against her back. "I feel small here," she confessed, "like the walls remember every time I scrubbed floors or kept my eyes down. Now I'm supposed to be Luna." "You already are," he murmured against her hair. "The title is just words. What matters is what you carry. What we carry. Our child. Our future. They can't take that from us unless we let them." He turned her gently to face him. Moonlight slanted through the tall windows, painting silver streaks across his cheekbones, catching the raw emotion in his eyes. "I should have brought you here months ago. As my equal. Not hidden in shadows. I robbed us both of time." Alara lifted a hand to his face, tracing the line of his jaw. "You're here now. That's what I hold on to." He caught her hand, pressed it over his heart. "Feel that? It only beats steady when you're near. I lost my way once. I won't again." They stood like that for long minutes, bodies close but not demanding, simply breathing the same air, sharing the same quiet. The pup rolled lazily between them, a tiny bridge of life that made everything else feel distant and small. Later, Thorn led her to the wide balcony overlooking the city. The lights of the Packlands glittered below like scattered stars. He stood behind her, arms loose around her middle, chin on her shoulder. "Tomorrow the council meets," he said softly. "They'll question everything, your status, the pup's place, my judgment. I will answer them. Not with anger, with truth. I will tell them the mate bond chose you long before I understood what it meant, that our child is the proof of that bond, and that any who challenge it, challenge the moon itself. Alara leaned back into him, and if they don't listen, then I remind them who holds the crown, and why. His voice dropped, fierce with quiet love. I would walk away from it all before I let anyone dim your light again. Tears stung her eyes. She turned in his arms, rising on her toes to press her forehead to his. I don't want you to lose your throne, but I need to know. If it came to that, you'd choose us? Every time, he breathed. Every single time. Their breaths mingled in the cool night air. She felt the emotion coil tight in her chest. Fear, hope, a fierce aching love that had survived distance and doubt. His hand found hers again, lacing their fingers over her belly. The pup kicked once, soft, like a promise. They stayed on the balcony until the moon began to dip, wrapped in each other, silent but speaking volumes in every touch, every shared breath. Inside, as they finally moved toward the bed, exhausted, but no longer alone, Alara paused at the threshold of the royal dressing chamber. Voices drifted from the corridor beyond the closed doors. Courtiers, maids, guards, low murmurs. An Omega, after all this time, the pup might not even be legitimate. She hid for months. Who knows what happened in those woods? Alara froze. Thorn heard it too. His body went still beside her. He stepped forward, ready to fling the doors open. She caught his arm. Not tonight, she whispered. Let them whisper. Tomorrow we answer with more than words. His eyes burned, protective fire flickering there. But he nodded once, slow, reluctant. They closed the inner doors. The whispers faded, but they lingered in the air like smoke. And in the quiet of the royal bedchamber, with Thorn's arms around her and their child between them, Alara knew the real battle had only just begun. Chapter 5. Moonlit Promises. The whispers from the corridor had followed Alara into sleep, like shadows clinging to her heels. She woke before dawn, heart already racing, the weight of the overheard words pressing against her ribs. Not legitimate. Hid for months. Who knows what happened? She lay still in the vast royal bed, Thorn's arm draped protectively over her waist, even in sleep. His breathing was deep and even, but she knew he wasn't truly resting. He never did when worry gnawed at him. The pup shifted restlessly inside her, mirroring her unease. 7.5 months now, and every day felt like walking a narrowing path between hope and dread. Alara slipped from under Thorn's arm as carefully as she could. He stirred instantly, golden eyes opening in the dim pre-dawn light. "You're awake," he murmured, voice rough with sleep and concern. "I couldn't stay asleep." She sat on the edge of the bed, hands cradling her belly. "The full moon rises tonight. I can feel it already, pulling at me, at the bond. And I keep thinking, what if it isn't enough? What if the moon sees what the courtiers see? An incomplete mark, a hidden pregnancy, a Luna who ran instead of standing." Thorn sat up slowly, sheets pooling around his waist. He reached for her hand, threading their fingers together without a word at first. Then he lifted her knuckles to his lips, pressing a long, quiet kiss there. "The moon doesn't judge the way humans do," he said softly. "It sees truth. It saw us the first time we met. Saw the bond snap into place before either of us understood what it meant. It watched you carry our child alone when I failed you. It will see us tonight, standing together, choosing each other again." Alara's throat tightened. "But the mark on my neck, it's faint. You never finished it that first night. You left before." "I know." His voice cracked, raw with regret. He shifted closer, resting his forehead against hers. "I was called away. Duty, pride, fear of what a true bond would demand of me. I told myself it was protection. For you, for the pack. But it was cowardice. And every day since, I've carried the shame of leaving that mark unfinished." She closed her eyes, feeling the ghost of his fangs against her skin from that long-ago night. I used to trace it with my fingers when I was alone, wondering if you regretted it, wondering if the moon regretted tying me to you. Thorn pulled back just enough to look into her eyes. His were bright, glistening in the faint light. Never. Not once. The regret is only that I didn't fight harder to stay, that I let anything pull me from you. He rose from the bed, offering his hand. Come, let me show you something. He led her through the quiet corridors to a private wing few ever saw, a small garden enclosed by high stone walls, open to the sky. Moonflowers bloomed along the paths, their pale petals unfurling as the sun crept closer to the horizon. In the center stood a low stone platform, etched with ancient runes that glowed faintly silver. This is where the first kings and lunas sealed their bonds under the full moon, Thorn said quietly. No audience, no council, just them, the night, and the truth between them. Alara looked up at the sky. The moon was already visible, pale and waiting. You want to finish the mark tonight? If you'll let me. He turned to face her fully, taking both her hands. Not because the court demands it. Not because the pup needs it for legitimacy. Because I need it. I need you to feel, beyond doubt, that I choose you. That I would choose you 1,000 times over in every life under every moon. Tears welled in her eyes. She searched his face, saw the vulnerability there, the fierce love, the quiet terror that she might still say no. I'm scared, she whispered. Not of you, of how much I still want this, how much it will hurt if it's taken away again. Thorn lifted her hands to his chest, pressing them over his heart. Then let it hurt tonight. Let it burn away every doubt. Let the moon witness that I am yours, completely, irrevocably. And if the world tries to take that from us tomorrow, we will face it as one marked soul. The emotion rose in her chest like a tide, fear and longing, and a deep, aching hope that refused to die. She nodded once, small but certain. As the sun set and the moon climbed higher, they stood on the platform. Thorn drew her close, arms encircling her gently, mindful of the swell between them. He brushed her hair aside, exposing the faint scar on her neck. I love you, he breathed against her skin. Not as a king loves a Luna, as a man loves the woman who carried his child through fear and loneliness, as a wolf loves the other half of his soul. Alara's breath hitched. She tilted her head, offering her neck fully. Then mark me, she whispered. Make it real. Make us whole. Thorn's fangs grazed her skin, slow, reverent. No rush, no claim of dominance, only devotion. When he bit down, gentle but firm, the bond flared to life like wildfire through dry grass. Heat surged between them, not just physical but something deeper. Memories, regrets, promises, forgiveness, all rushing together in one blinding wave. Alara gasped, fingers digging into his shoulders. Tears streamed down her cheeks, not from pain, but from the overwhelming rush of feeling him fully, completely, without walls. She felt his regret like her own, his love like a tide pulling her under and lifting her at once. The pup kicked hard, as though celebrating the moment. When he pulled back, licking the fresh mark closed with tender care, their eyes met. Gold on deep brown, soul on soul. You're mine, he said, voice thick. And I'm yours, forever. She rose on her toes, pressing her lips to his in a kiss that tasted of salt and moonlight and unshakable truth. It was slow, deep with emotion, every brush of mouth saying what words couldn't. I forgive you. I choose you. I need you. They stood wrapped in each other as the moon reached its zenith, the garden silent except for their breathing and the soft rustle of moonflowers. Later, as they walked back to their chambers hand in hand, Alara felt lighter than she had in months. The mark on her neck pulsed gently, warm and alive. The bond thrummed between them, steady and sure. But as they reached the bedroom door, a sharp twinge lanced through her abdomen, sudden, unexpected. She froze, hand flying to her belly. Thorn was at her side in an instant. Alara? It's nothing, she said quickly. But another twinge followed, sharper this time. His face paled. The healers, now. He scooped her gently into his arms, carrying her inside as though she were made of glass. Outside the window, the full moon watched in silence. And for the first time since the mark, fear crept back in, cold and insistent. Chapter 6, Holding On. The sharp twinge had come and gone in seconds, but it left behind a lingering tightness that refused to fade. Thorn carried Alara straight to the royal bed, laying her down with the care of someone handling something infinitely precious. He didn't speak at first, only knelt beside the mattress, one hand still clasping hers, the other hovering protectively over her belly, as though he could shield the pup from whatever invisible threat had just brushed them. "Tell me what you feel," he said, voice low and steady, though she could hear the tremor beneath it. Alara drew a slow breath, trying to keep her own panic at bay. It was quick, like a cramp, but deeper. It's easing now, but it scared me. She met his eyes. "It's too soon, Thorn. We're not ready." He leaned forward, pressing his forehead to hers again. The same gesture that had anchored them under the moon just hours earlier. The fresh mark on her neck still tingled, warm and alive, a reminder that they were bound now in ways no court or whisper could undo. "We don't have to be ready for everything," he murmured. "We just have to hold on, together." He didn't leave her side. Not for water, not for air, not even when the first healer arrived, a silver-haired woman named Mara, the pack's most trusted midwife, who had delivered generations of Silverfang pups. Mara examined Alara gently, hands cool and sure, pressing here and there with quiet focus. Thorn stayed right there, kneeling on the rug, never once releasing Alara's hand. After long minutes, Mara straightened. The pains were false contractions, Braxton Hicks, intensified by the bonding ritual and the moon's pull. The pup is strong, heartbeat steady, position good. But this is a warning. The pregnancy is advanced for an Omega carrying an Alpha heir. The bond completion tonight may have stirred things faster than nature intended. Rest, calm, no stress. The pup could come any day now, perhaps in the next week or two if we're not careful. Alara's breath caught. Any day. Mara's gaze softened. Many first births arrive early for us, but you are healthy. The child is ready. You both are stronger than you know. Thorn thanked the healer with a quiet nod, but his eyes never left Alara. When Mara left, promising to return at first light, the room fell silent except for the soft crackle of the fire in the hearth. Thorn climbed onto the bed beside her, careful not to jostle her. He pulled her gently against his chest, arranging pillows so she could rest comfortably with her back to him, his arms encircling her middle. One hand splayed wide over her belly, fingers stroking slow, soothing circles. "I'm not leaving this bed," he said against her hair. "Not until our child is in our arms. Council be damned. Throne be damned. They can vote themselves into oblivion for all I care tonight." Alara turned her head just enough to see his face in the firelight. "You can't ignore them forever. I can ignore them long enough to keep you safe." His voice cracked on the last word. "I almost lost you once because I put duty first. I won't make that mistake again. Not when every second feels like it could be the one that brings him, or her, into the world." She felt tears rise again, hot and sudden. What if something goes wrong? What if I'm not strong enough? I hid for so long. I kept thinking I had to do it alone. Now that you're here, the fear is worse, because losing either of you would break me. Thorn's arms tightened. He buried his face in the crook of her neck, right over the fresh mark, inhaling deeply as though drawing strength from her scent. "You were strong enough to carry our child through months of loneliness, fear, and doubt. You're the strongest person I've ever known, and if anything tries to take you or the pup from me, I will fight the moon itself to keep you both." His voice broke then, quietly, privately, the way only someone who rarely allowed vulnerability could. "I was so afraid when the pain started. I thought, gods, Alara. I thought I'd finally gotten you back only to lose you in the same night. The mark was supposed to make us whole, not bring more risk. She reached back, threading her fingers into his hair. It did make us whole. I feel you now. Every heartbeat, every regret, every promise. It's overwhelming, but it's beautiful. And it makes me braver. They lay like that for hours. Bodies close, breaths synchronized, the pup rolling gently under their joined hands like a quiet witness to their shared fear and fierce love. Thorn whispered stories against her ear. Memories of his own childhood in these halls. Dreams he'd once had for a family he never thought he'd deserve. Promises for the life they would build once the pup arrived. I want to teach them how to run under the moon, he said softly. How to listen to the wind in the trees. How to love without fear, like you taught me. Alara smiled through tears. And I want them to know their father chose them over a crown. That he stayed. The night deepened. The pains didn't return, but the tension lingered. An unspoken urgency that made every quiet moment feel precious. As the first gray light of morning crept through the windows, Thorn lifted her hand to his lips again. Whatever comes next, labor, counsel, whispers, we face it as one. Marked. Bound. Unbreakable. Alara turned in his arms as much as she could, pressing her forehead to his. Unbreakable, she echoed. But outside the chamber doors, footsteps approached. Hurried. Official. A guard's voice murmured low to another. Thorn tensed. Alara felt it ripple through him. A soft knock. My king, came Mara's voice, urgent but calm. The council has sent word. They demand your presence at midday. They say if you do not appear, they will proceed with the vote to appoint a regent. Lord Vera is already gathering support. They claim the throne cannot wait for Biao. Personal matters. Alara's heart sank. Thorn's jaw clenched. He looked down at her, eyes blazing with a mix of fury and heartbreak. They want me to choose, he said quietly. She touched his cheek. Then choose us. We'll handle the rest. He nodded once, slow, resolute. But the knock came again, more insistent. And in the silence that followed, the weight of the crown pressed down harder than ever. Chapter 7. The Dawn of a New Pack. The insistent knock still hung in the air like smoke after a fire. Thorn hadn't moved from Alara's side, his body a shield between her and the door. His hand remained splayed protectively over her belly, fingers trembling just enough for her to feel it. The midwife Mara's warning about the council's midday vote echoed in the silence. Regent, throne, absence, but neither of them spoke of it yet. Alara reached up, cupping Thorn's face with both hands. His eyes were stormy, torn between the man who wanted to storm the council chamber and the father who refused to leave this room. Don't go, she whispered. Not today. Not when it feels like the pup is listening to every word we say. Thorn exhaled shakily, leaning into her touch. I won't. I told you. I choose us. Let them appoint their regent. Let them whisper and scheme. The throne means nothing if I lose the only things that ever made it worth sitting on. A soft contraction rippled across her abdomen, not sharp like before, but deep, rolling, inevitable. She gasped quietly, fingers tightening on his shoulders. Thorn's head snapped up. Now! She nodded, eyes wide with a mix of fear and wonder. It's starting. Really starting. He moved with calm precision born of love, not panic. He helped her settle against the mountain of pillows, rang for Mara and the other healers with a single sharp call through the door, then returned to her side. No grand gestures. Just him. Steady, present, eyes locked on hers. Mara arrived swiftly, followed by 2 assistants carrying trays of warm cloths, herbal teas, and quiet reassurance. The room filled with the scent of lavender and chamomile, the fire crackling higher as though the hearth itself wanted to help keep her warm. The contractions came in waves, slow at first, building like a tide drawn by the moon they had stood under only the night before. Thorn never left her. He held her hand through each one, murmuring low words only she could hear. You're doing this. You're so strong. I'm right here. Breathe with me. When the pain crested and she cried out, he pressed his forehead to hers, breathing with her, slow inhale, slow exhale, until the wave passed. His free hand stroked her hair back from her damp forehead, thumb brushing away tears she didn't realize she was shedding. "I'm scared," she confessed between contractions, voice small. "I know," he answered, voice thick. "I'm terrified too. But look at what you've already done. Carried our child alone, survived my mistakes, came back to me anyway. This is just the last part of the miracle you started." Hours blurred, time lost meaning. There was only the rhythm of breath, the press of his hand in hers, the quiet encouragement from Mara, and the growing pressure that told her the pup was coming soon. When the urge to push arrived, fierce, undeniable, Thorn helped lift her slightly, supporting her back. He whispered against her ear, "You've got this. Push when you're ready. I'm holding you both." Alara bore down with everything she had, every fear she'd carried, every lonely night, every hope she'd dared to keep. Thorn's voice stayed steady beside her. "I love you. Gods, I love you so much." One final, long push, and then the most beautiful sound in the world filled the room, a strong, indignant cry. Mara lifted the tiny, wriggling bundle, wrapped her quickly in soft linen, and placed her on Alara's chest. A daughter, small, perfect, with a shock of dark hair and lungs that already knew how to demand attention. Alara stared down at her, tears streaming unchecked. "She's here," she breathed, voice cracking. "She's really here." Thorn's breath hitched audibly. He leaned over them both, one arm around Alara's shoulders, the other trembling as he touched their daughter's cheek for the first time. His fingertip, scarred from years of holding a crown, looked impossibly gentle against her soft skin. "Hello, little one," he whispered, voice raw and reverent. "I'm your father, and I promise, I will never leave you. Not for a second." The baby blinked up at them, eyes still cloudy with newborn haze, but already fierce. She quieted almost instantly against Alara's skin, tiny fist curling over Thorn's finger as though claiming him right back. Alara looked up at Thorn. His face was wet, tears tracking freely down his cheeks, no attempt to hide them. The Alpha King, unbreakable in battle and council, was utterly undone by the small life between them. "She has your eyes," Alara said softly. "And your strength," he answered, voice breaking. He pressed a long, trembling kiss to Alara's forehead, then another to the baby's downy head. "Thank you," he whispered to Alara. "For her, for forgiving me, for letting me be here." She reached up, wiping his tears with her thumb. "We did this together, from the beginning, even when we were apart." They sat like that, wrapped around their daughter, breathing in her new scent of milk and warmth and possibility. The room felt smaller, safer, the outside world reduced to a distant murmur. Mara and the assistant slipped out quietly, giving them this sacred bubble of time. Thorn finally spoke again, voice hushed. "What should we name her?" Alara looked down at the tiny face nestled against her heart. "Leora," she said, "light. Because she came after so much darkness." "Leora," Thorn repeated, tasting the name like a vow. "Our light." He kissed Alara again, slow, deep with emotion, tasting of salt and gratitude, and forever. No rush, no demand. Just the quiet seal of everything they had survived and everything they still promised. But as the first rays of true morning light slipped through the curtains, a soft knock came again, gentler this time. Mara's voice filtered through the door. "My king, my Luna, the council has heard the news. The birth. They're waiting. Lord Vera says the vote proceeds unless you appear to affirm your rule, and your heir." Thorn looked at Alara, then down at Leora, who had drifted into peaceful sleep against her mother's chest. His jaw set, eyes burned with quiet fire. "Let them wait," he said softly, but loud enough for the door to hear. "The king will come when his family is ready. Not before." Outside silence. Inside, only the soft breathing of 3 hearts beating as one. Chapter 8, Forever Marked. The soft knock had faded, but the weight of Mara's words lingered like morning mist in the room. Lord Vera's ultimatum hung unspoken between them. The throne demanded its king, yet here Thorn sat, unmoving, eyes fixed on the tiny bundle sleeping against Alara's chest. Leora's small breaths rose and fell in perfect rhythm, each one a quiet declaration. We are here. We are real. Alara looked up at Thorn. His face was still streaked with dried tears, but the storm in his eyes had settled into something deeper, resolve carved from love rather than duty. You have to go, she said softly, though every word cost her. Not because they command it, because if you don't, they'll twist this moment into something ugly. They'll say the king abandoned his pack for a family he kept hidden. They'll question Leora's place before she even opens her eyes to the world. Thorn's throat worked. He reached out, brushing the lightest touch across their daughter's cheek, barely there, as though afraid his calloused fingers might disturb her peace. I swore I would never leave again. Not for a crown. Not for anything. You're not leaving us, Alara answered, voice trembling with quiet strength. You're protecting us. By showing them what a real king looks like. One who chooses love over power, but still stands to guard what he loves. Go. Affirm the throne. Affirm her. Then come back to us. He searched her face for a long moment, as if memorizing every line, every flicker of emotion. Then he nodded. Slow, heavy with the weight of the choice he was making again. This time freely. I'll be quick, he promised. And when I return, nothing will pull me away again. He leaned down, pressing a long, lingering kiss to Alara's forehead, full of gratitude, apology, and unbreakable promise. Then he kissed Leora's tiny head, inhaling her scent like it was the only air he needed. Sleep well, my light, he whispered. Your father will make sure the world is safe for you. He stood, shoulders squaring as the king resurfaced over the man, but the softness in his eyes remained only for them. He left the chamber quietly, the door closing with a soft click that felt final and fragile all at once. Alara held Leora closer, rocking her gently. The room felt emptier without him, but not hollow. The mark on her neck pulsed warmly, a living thread connecting them even across the palace halls. She could feel him, his steady heartbeat, his fierce determination, his love pouring back to her like moonlight through a window. Hours passed in tender quiet. Mara returned to check on them, bringing warm broth and fresh linens. Servants slipped in and out with hushed reverence, eyes wide at the sight of the new princess. Alara let them look, let them whisper, let them see. When the sun reached its highest point, distant horns sounded from the great hall, 3 long notes, the traditional call of a king reaffirmed. The vote had ended. Thorn had spoken. The throne was secure. Not long after, footsteps, familiar, purposeful, approached the door. Thorn entered alone. No entourage, no crown. Just him. Coat discarded, sleeves rolled to his elbows, hair slightly tousled as though he'd run the corridors rather than walked them. He crossed the room in 3 strides, dropping to his knees beside the bed. They yielded, he said, voice rough with emotion. I told them the truth, that my absence was never abandonment. It was the search for the missing half of my soul. That my mate carried our heir through fear I caused, and returned to me stronger than any crown could make her. That Leora is legitimate, loved, and already more important to this pack than any alliance or title. He reached for Alara's hand, pressing it to his lips. They listened, some grudgingly, some with awe, but the vote passed. No regent, no contest, and I made it clear, any who question my family question me, and I will not hesitate to defend what is mine. Tears slipped down Alara's cheeks again, happy ones this time, full of relief and pride. You chose us, she whispered. I always will. He climbed onto the bed carefully, gathering them both into his arms, Alara against his chest, Leora cradled between them. The council can wait. The pack can wait. Right now, the only thing that matters is this." They stayed like that as the afternoon light softened into evening. Leora stirred, tiny mouth rooting instinctively, and Alara guided her to nurse while Thorn watched with quiet wonder, one finger tracing the curve of their daughter's ear. As the harvest moon rose once more, full and golden, the same moon that had witnessed their first meeting, their reunion, their marking, and now their family, Thorn spoke again, voice low and reverent. "Tonight marks a year since the night I first saw you across the bonfire, since the bond snapped into place and changed everything." Alara smiled through fresh tears. "It feels like lifetimes." "It does." He pressed a gentle kiss to her temple. "And every lifetime from now on, I choose this. You. Her. Us." They moved to the balcony together, Thorn carrying Leora in the crook of one arm, Alara leaning against his side. The city lights glittered below, the packlands stretching out under the moon's silver glow. Somewhere distant, wolves sang, a low, harmonious howl of celebration and welcome. Leora blinked up at the sky, tiny hand waving as though reaching for the stars. Alara rested her head on Thorn's shoulder. She's going to grow up knowing she was wanted, loved, chosen. Thorn turned his face to hers. "And so are you, every day, every moon, forever." He kissed her then, slow, deep with emotion, tasting of salt, gratitude, and the quiet fire of a love that had survived hiding, doubt, pain, and finally bloomed into something unbreakable. They stood there as a family, 3 hearts beating in time, watching the moon rise higher, the bond between them glowing brighter than any crown. No more running, no more hiding, only them, together, always. If this story touched you, the quiet ache of hiding love, the raw fear of losing what matters most, the fierce joy of finally being chosen, then let it linger a little longer in your heart. Imagine Alara and Thorn standing on that balcony under the harvest moon, Leora cradled between them, the packlands stretching out like a promise kept. That kind of love doesn't end when the last word is read. It lives in the spaces between heartbeats, in the choices we make when no one is watching, in the courage it takes to stop running and start building. So here's my call to you. If you've ever hidden a piece of yourself out of fear, if you've ever wondered whether forgiveness is possible after deep hurt, if you've ever felt the quiet miracle of holding something, or someone, you thought you'd never have, share this story. Pass it to a friend who needs to remember they're worthy of being chosen. Tell someone who's still hiding that it's okay to step into the light, or simply sit with it tonight. Feel the emotion, let it stir something inside you, and whisper to yourself the same promise Thorn made. I choose us, every time. Because stories like this aren't just entertainment. They're quiet rebellions against loneliness. They're reminders that broken things can mend stronger. They're proof that love, real, messy, moon-marked love, still wins. So go ahead, feel it deeply, then do something brave with that feeling. Share the story, live the promise. Choose your us. What will you choose today?